If you look at your screens now, I have a question. So before we start, you should see on your screens a question. Which technology will be the most impactful on the workforce in the next 10 years? Please give me your gut reaction, your first reaction to this. Will it be artificial intelligence, blockchain, mobile technology, Excel? We all love Excel in HR, or some other technology that I don't know about that you think would be more impactful in the next 10 years? Give me your initial responses. I'd be really interested to see this. So I feel like a horse race commentator. Taking the lead is artificial intelligence with 80% of respondents. Very interesting. Mobile is taking 13%, and we're already using mobile every day, of course. And blockchain, I'm really interested in this. Blockchain has got 6% of the votes. Coming up on the rails is the blockchain horse in the race for technology influence. Now that's really interesting because, of course, we don't use these technologies in their own right, do we? They're all combined. But it is interesting to see which ones are going to be most impactful. There we go. It's pretty stable. Artificial intelligence is the winner with 82% of the votes. I can show those with you momentarily. Now, we're all dialing into this webinar from around the world. So it would be good morning in the United States. People in Europe have probably had brunch and a couple of coffees by now, and it's probably getting towards the end of the working day in Asia, Australasia. But what I want you to do now is to sit back, take a sip of your chai or coffee, shut your eyes and imagine, because I'm going to take you into a future scenario. Jo, an account manager, is being taken to the office in her bug car, her Beamer Uber Google driverless car. She's discussing her day with her automated coaching partner, Sirius. Here's my robot voice. I noticed that you had less alpha rhythm sleep last night. I suggest you have some breakfast to increase your energy levels. At 11 a.m., you have a meeting with the new client executive. She is usually skeptical initially, but warms up. Remember to ask an open question and smile to help her feel at ease. I noticed that Lee, your insights manager, has a different socializing pattern and lower productivity since coming back from sick leave last week. It might be worth checking in with him today while in the office. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This futuristic scenario requires you to suspend your disbelief. Firstly, it meshes different data sets that we don't measure at the moment. Performance, location, personal biometric data. Secondly, it assumes we've got a robust framework for the prediction of behavior, and we're not quite there yet. And finally, it assumes employees, well, like Jo, are willing for employers to use their personal data on movement, diet, and performance in this way. All currently outrageous, but there again, not so far away. Could this type of insight be possible in the near future? So who would want a serious automated coaching partner? Would it appeal to you to have such a device? Would you want to roll that out to your business? Now, in my view, we should give these tools to our employees to become better at work, more productive, and even more healthy. We should use these tools to empower workers, but we also have to be careful not to spy on them. We do not want a form of digital Taylorism. In London, there was outrage after the Daily Telegraph, a big broadsheet newspaper, put sensors under the journalists' desks. Now, the lesson learned here is always get permission from employees, especially when your employees are journalists. And in the digital COVID era, with millions of employees working from home, there's reports of employers using surveillance to recreate the oversight of the office at home. Login times, screenshots, facial recognition. But it's really important for people's sense of autonomy and dignity and mental health, that home remains a private space and they're trusted to do their work. Now, the quantified worker will be introduced, but only at the speed of employee trust. Now, the pandemic has exposed the fault lines in our societies, in governance, trust, infrastructure, and inequalities in gender, race, and age. It's estimated that some 40 to 50% of workers around the world are currently able to work from home. And there's talk of a remote work revolution. But remember, the physical location of some work may have changed, but the organization of that work is still very much centralized. So if we're looking to make substantial organizational change, we need to go much deeper than just location. Now, it's been interesting as different governments have tried to pay workers to compensate them in the pandemic, and it's been a bit of a revelation. Not everyone has a job with set hours, set work location, and a boss. In fact, if there's 3.3 billion people employed worldwide, about 2 billion of them are informally employed. And this is a shocking statistic. It might surprise you, but more than half of the world's working age women are not in the labor force, which is astounding, isn't it? 500 million in the world lack adequate access to paid work or the hours that they want to work. And for those with jobs under HR's responsibility, there's a debate raging about remote work. On the one hand, we have Jack Dorsey, the head of Twitter. He says the company's staff can work from home forever. And we've got Reed Hastings, on the other hand, the founder of Netflix, saying home working is a pure negative. Now, we're going to talk a bit during this session about how we can use technology to help us answer these questions. Now, I want to talk about the decentralized workforce. As I mentioned, half the world's working age women don't have formal employment. There's many ways to earn and learn in 2020, from laborers to playborers, carers to sharers, preachers to teachers. A job contract with the associated boss, fixed hours and salary is not the answer for everyone. In the USA, up to 1 in 7 working age adults have worked via a platform at some point. Now, the gig economy, it's not new, it's not well defined. It includes on-call workers, contractors, seasonal workers, and even a few management consultants. And then we have the unpaid workers. It's estimated that if American women earned minimum wage for the unpaid work they do around the house, caring for relatives, they would have made $1.5 trillion last year. And then you've got playborers. This could be you, it could be your kids, as you might have guessed. This term is a hybrid of play and labor, found in the digital games industry. We've got YouTuber influencers and modders getting paid to play games. The live streamers are broadcasting user-created video in real time on Twitch, or non-gaming examples on Caffeine for interactive shows. And they're earning money. The top 10 list of YouTube earners is interesting, including 5 gamers who play Minecraft and Fortnite, which you might be familiar with. Number 3 on the list is Nastya, with 42 billion video views. Nastya is 5 years old, born in southern Russia with cerebral palsy, and her earnings last year, $18 million. Now, the massive inclusion of this global workforce is enabled by freely available tools and technology, mobile, video, social media, AI. And as jobs are unbundled into tasks over the longer term, work's going to be reconstituted into new forms, needing a more diverse group of workers to reach their potential. I reckon we're going to get new types of organizations, markets, platforms, and work ecosystems that are better suited for our needs. And over the longer term, this will question the nature of the employee-employer contracts and even the job. Now, in HR, what does this mean? Well, we need to get better at procuring work and designing work more generally. It includes technology, suppliers. It's not always people and full time positions, but we do need to nurture broader talent pools like the freelancers. And maybe not Nastya for a few more years anyway. If you'd like to read more about the decentralized workforce, you can do with my essay on the Workforce Futurist newsletter. And a big question for people at home, at work, in the media: will robots take our jobs? And with this automation might provide extra income for some, the press are asking this question. But I think it's been reported in a slightly misguided way. Of course, robots have their uses. For example, during the pandemic, American Eagle Outfitters deployed robots to help sort clothes in its warehouses to meet a surge of online orders. But robots have always been used to project our greatest fears in films and literature. Some of them are quite scary. In the word robot is Czech. It comes from robota, meaning forced labor. So we can't possibly predict the kind of work there will be in 10 years' time. Who would have predicted the impact of the smartphone only a few years ago, or indeed the internet 20 years ago, or even COVID? And as we watch the geopolitical ramifications of maybe USA versus China playing out, the ongoing battle between capital and labor, supply and demand chasing each other like dogs in the park, what can we really predict about our future economies? So, zooming beyond the fact that some of us have been able to work remotely, the long term impact, I think, is going to come at the latter phases of industry restructuring and bankruptcies, mergers, acquisitions, and then the green shoots, supply chain reinvention, revamped products and services. So, HR is going to be extremely busy over the next few years, and this technology will change. I think the technology's already changed the workforce. And the way we go about finding work and workers, what I call the infrastructure of work, is definitely going to change over the next decade. The internet has given us so many options when it comes to fulfilling our need to play, to shop, to socialize, entertainment. Also, it's given us new routes to status, friendships, and meaning that work has had in the past. And also, the internet provides us a continuous competitive market for our attention. The overlap between entertainment, learning, and work is going to play out in some really interesting ways in the 2020s. Now, as always, it will be the macroeconomic drivers that shape how we work, not what Google did in 2015. For employers, new workforce strategies will emerge in the context of local market supply and demand. And it will be these dynamics that dictate our HR and management practices, not the new apps necessarily. Before we can predict what work will look like in the future, we need to redefine work itself. Can you spot the HR robot? Well, this is me with my mate, Harry the robot. But I'm not sure these cute robots are going to be doing all our work just yet. Automation is going to replace some of the lower level transactional work, and it has already. But rest assured, for us human beings, we're still going to need empathy, critical thinking, complex problem solving skills, communication skills, creativity. And with an aging workforce in some countries, like in China, Japan, Germany, a better question than will robots take our jobs is, what if robots don't take our jobs? Well, there's going to be a transition, as there is always, and HR leaders are in a prime position to help people manage this transition. Now we come on now to workforce technology, the technology opportunities for HR. We've seen how workers and their expectations are changing. Our workforce is more global, distributed, and extended. What about tech in the workplace? Whenever we get new technology, it's really tempting just to apply it to the old processes. I'll give you an example. I can remember paper job application forms. I'm sure you're all too young to remember these, but we had a paper job application form. When the internet came along, we took the 50 fields on the internet on the paper application and put them all on the internet. So it became online. And we realized that probably wasn't the best way to go. And we made it neater and we learned how the internet worked. Then mobile came along and we took our application forms with their 20 fields and put it onto a mobile app. Okay, so that didn't work too well for candidates filling in a job application whilst on the bus to work. We learned to adapt. So when we get new technology, it's an opportunity to rethink how we do things. And all these technologies have impacted HR and people management in different ways. In this quite kind of short session, I'm going to focus briefly on the cloud, AI, blockchain, and give you a people analytics example. Now, of course, there's been a big move to the cloud or software as a service. That's been a game changer for HR. It's not because the functionality is so much better, but cloud-based software has forced the standardization of HR processes. Basically, you can't mold a cloud-based system around the nuances of your own company processes when there's only one version of the software. Now, the great thing about this is this software isn't just for big organizations with big budgets. I'll give you an example. In the UK, where I'm from, half of the private sector employees work for companies with less than 50 people. Not everyone works for massive multinationals. And with software, for employees with less than 1,000 or smaller companies, you can try this software. There's free trials. You can see whether this software is going to work for your company and roll it out. And a good example of that, of course, is Zoho People. Now, when we talk about the future of technology, I think it would be sensible just to have a little look back at history, just momentarily. What has the internet ever done for HR? I don't know whether there's any Monty Python fans out there, but the internet has brought us loads of benefits, from emails to PDFs, job boards. But in some ways, in work, it seems like we're in the digital dark age. I'll give you an example. Our humble CV or resume has been used to apply for jobs since its invention by Leonardo da Vinci in the 15th century. Now, we know that employers and workers know the details on our resume, CV, will never be checked. And in this digital age where Google has made our knowledge searchable, our data, our work data, is not easily searchable. And where studied at Harvard can mean studied Harvard Business Review. From an economist perspective, there's poor visibility of information on available workers and vacancies, which leads to inefficient matching. That's basically why we have a recruitment and staffing industry with all that checking, contracting, and searching going on. Now, over 600 million people have put their profiles on LinkedIn, a very useful service. But what we're doing here is providing our career history free of charge, and then this data is then sold on to recruiters. Now, I think we're seeing a bigger backlash about how our personal data is being used. And believe me, this will come across to the world of work soon. So we need to build a new work infrastructure for the next generation, including sorting out our personal data. And I'm going to cover this a little bit more when I talk about blockchain. But before I do, as you all predicted that artificial intelligence would be the number one technology in the next decade, let's talk about the emergence of AI. In the early 1940s, in the midst of the Second World War in Europe, teams worked around the clock to break the code of the Axis powers. And they had these huts, and one of the hut leaders was Alan Turing, a mathematician. And he built a machine or the early computer to process these codes more quickly. It was a great example of using tenacity and the benefits of diversity of thought to solve problems together. And in the 1950s, Turing wrote a book, and the first question was, can machines think? Early 1950s. And that question has inspired lots of people since then. Let me tell you, I did a master's degree in cognitive science and artificial intelligence way back in the mid-90s. Now, at the time, there wasn't much demand for my rookie AI programming skills in neural networks. But there were three types of people on my masters. There were engineers. How are we going to work out? How do we work out how the brain works with face recognition or speech processing? There were philosophers. What does it mean to think? Can a computer think? And there were psychologists. What can it tell us about us strange human beings? And over 20 years ago, who would have foreseen all the breakthroughs we've had, mainly in the engineering side of AI? Now, I suspect with all the behavioral data that we now have on Joe in a bug car and others and us, we're going to learn more about ourselves in the next 10 years than we have in the last 100. And that is really exciting for me. And what about in HR? Now, artificial intelligence does have a problem, and the clue is in the name. You ask 100 people for a definition of intelligence, and they would all be different. What we've got here is we suffer a bit with cutesy anthropomorphism. I think the future of work will not always have a face on it. And you know what I mean there. The cute robots, the Alexa that we talk into, for example. Basically, the way to see AI is as a continuation of the general automation trend, more algorithms and advanced statistics. In general, AI includes natural language processing, pattern recognition, and machine learning. We've probably all used AI today with one of our apps, maybe Netflix or Spotify. And what about in HR? Look, I agree with you. I think that AI is going to be so impactful. Here's kind of the holy grail. AI comes into its own in recruitment with this pattern recognition. There might be 100 or 1,000 data points that might be used to predict whether somebody is going to be a good team member in your company. Now, they're going to be missed by us humans, and we have our preconceived ideas and biases. So the holy grail is working out which of these thousands of factors predict a great employee or team member. So I'll give you a positive example of using AI tech. Textio, going back to the job description and analyzing response patterns to different words. Now, we've all probably been guilty of cutting and pasting a job description. We've all done it. But one of their findings was in gender differences, one of the challenges, because as we know, about 80% of software engineers are male. So if you put the words work hard, play hard in your job advert or ninja, yes, believe it or not, you attract more males than females. That won't surprise you. But using words like adaptable and creative attracted more females. Now, this isn't going to surprise seasoned recruiters, but my point is that we can use this kind of technology to get more of the outcomes we want. But a word of warning, we do need to use the right tools for the right job. I'll give you an example, an early example. Amazon tried to build a machine to hire the best technologists. So they wanted to be able to take their tens of thousands of applications and find who are the 5 best candidates. We all want to do that. The only problem is that the typical software engineer looks a little bit like me, a hairy man. So the pattern recognition software was actually screening out words with women in them. So if you were in the women's chess club at university, it was screening you out. Now, to be fair, this was an early example. It was recognized and it was fixed. AI is very useful, but like with all this technology, we need to use it in the right way. Now, in HR, in modern HR, we know that successful team dynamics is critical in building organizations. However, many of our HR and management processes are still designed around the individual. Now, one way to gain a better understanding of teams is organizational network analysis. You can see the pretty picture on the screen. One method is for employees to complete quick pulse surveys. These open feedback questions are interspersed to understand sentiment and key issues. You can also look at actual networking behavior on email, for example. So the end result is a visual representation of your team dynamics. So this example you can see is an example of a company that grew from 30 to 500 people quite quickly. It was done by Innovisor, based in Denmark. And their problem was they weren't very agile. They were slow. They spent 60% of their time in meetings. So when they did this organizational network analysis, you can see the results. The blue dots you can see. They've been there, they're employees that have been there the longest. The green dots are new employees who have come along. Now, guess which dot is the CEO? Well spotted, folks. It was the red dot. But the diagram is showing some strong teams, but nobody new was added to the core of decision making. So what they did after this analysis was made some pretty straightforward improvements. They had guiding principles for meetings to make them more effective. And they realized that they had a dinner club once a month where just the founding team were invited. So they stopped doing that. So this kind of analysis is increasingly being carried out to solve workforce problems. It's not for everyone. You need certain parameters in place around size, access. But some of the kind of challenges it's looking at is employee well-being, are staff at risk of burnout, isolation, are employees at risk of working in silos, narrowing their collaboration networks? How do we identify our influencers, particularly if you're planning some change? And how can we use this ONA along with our existing employee surveys for real-time listening? I want to give you another example. You've seen pulse surveys asking employees how they're feeling at a particular point of time. Usually they're on scales, 1 to 5. We get an average, that kind of thing. But what can people analytics tell us about the remote work question I mentioned earlier? There's a case that maybe working from home can make people happier. There was a paper published in 2017 by the American Economic Review, and it found that workers were willing to accept an 8% pay cut to work from home, suggesting it gives them non-monetary benefits. Now, of course, that survey was done before the pandemic, not ideal situations. Another survey by Leisman, a workforce consultancy, surveyed the experience of more than 100,000 white-collar workers during the pandemic. And it found that satisfaction with working from home, it does vary according to whether that person has a dedicated office and desk space or not. Now, with kids at home and homeschooling, there's often a battle for that kitchen table for the laptops to do work, and I can understand that. So the challenge for bosses is to find ways of preserving and boosting employee happiness and innovation as home working becomes more common. And this diagram is basically making sense of large volumes of text-based employee feedback. Now, this data gives you another glimpse at survey data, quantitative survey data. And because employees are able to express what is most important to them, it can identify topics that wouldn't normally be added to very structured questions. So they're asked about their experience, why this matters to them and their employer. And this diagram shows from 100,000 comments from different sectors in many geographies that some key themes are emerging with topics that people mention together. Each segment can be mapped to demographic data to create personas. But what they found was employees strongly value working from home, but they don't want to do it every day. And the themes that emerged were during the middle of the pandemic, and it might be possible that we're in a honeymoon period, that people adapt, they can keep the ship afloat, but then there's a period where the downsides become more prominent. We don't know. We're in the middle of this. And there's notable differences between firms and across geographies. So this is only one data point. It's background reading. And I think for organizations, you need to look at this in the context of other organizational data. I mean, they recommend letting employees self-select to work from home where they can. And that can lead to firm-wide productivity and work-life balance. So there's a couple of examples of using data in different ways than you might have come across. Now, this talk is about the future, the next decade, sorting out our career data, and also what that might mean. You might start to see signs of this next year, but certainly over the next decade, I think. And one of these areas is blockchain. Now, when you think of blockchain, you might well think of Bitcoin. Blockchain's the underlying technology behind Bitcoin. Now, blockchain, it doesn't converse with you. You can't print a 3D house with it. It doesn't cut your kidney stones out with precision while the surgeon has a cup of tea. Of all the emerging technologies, blockchain is probably the least exciting, but potentially the most impactful on society. There's a lot of interest in many industries, including financial services, supply chain, and education. The exciting thing isn't advanced database design. It's the fact that whole industries have to get together to collaborate, to create networks, to sort out the data. This is the exciting thing about blockchain, and it's coming into the world of work. Last year, Singapore announced that all new students graduating from its universities will be issued with digital wallets to demonstrate the validity of their degree. The industry, the HR tech industry, has created a non-profit foundation called the Velocity Foundation with 15 founding members who are very large tech companies and staffing providers, and they want to build the Internet of Careers. This has started already. The basic premise in this world of work is that we hold our personal work credentials ourselves. They're verifiable. And instead of giving up this data too easily, over time, we can build up our digital badges and accomplishments, our courses, our achievements, and we can choose to share these with future employers. So blockchain is a decentralized database. It's shared among a network of computers, all of which must approve an exchange before it can be recorded. To understand the impact of blockchain in HR, don't bother learning about advanced database design, cryptography, or the nuances of token economics. Think about where this world might lead to, where we have our own digital CV and resume, and we're using it to transact on work platforms. And some of the key areas that blockchain is being used so far in identity verification, managing your work credentials so they can be references, employment history, skills, degrees, payment platforms. It's an outcry that overseas remittance fees for workers can be 5 to 13% of salaries. These new technologies can be peer-to-peer, taking out the intermediaries and reducing the remittance fees. And work matching platforms, they can be for freelance platforms, but they're also in blue collar examples in the US that rely less on intermediaries. And how might this look? Well, you might recognize this fellow, who I believe is now active in the job market. Here's the digital resume or CV of 007. You might not be able to read this, but it says key projects, Casino Royale, Skyfall, advanced skills, driving Aston Martins very fast, key achievements, captured Blofeld. You get the idea. But in the future, we're going to have our own digital CV. Elements of it are going to be verifiable. And of course, as we know, the CV isn't the only thing here that is going to predict whether you're going to be a good worker, but it's actually just getting a grip on some of the data we have now. And I see 3 waves of blockchain. And more generally, I would suggest workforce platforms. The first wave, we're going to organize our work and hiring data better, more efficient labor markets, enabling more trust, more candidate verification. If you've been checked once, that's all that is needed rather than checking every time a new employee walks in the door. Wave 2, I believe we're going to see more seamless work matching, more people working in the freelance and gig economy, the decentralized workforce, fairer pay, more trust. And society is going to have to adapt to this. with a new social contract, a new way of thinking about education, welfare as well. And lifelong learning will be a big theme. Babies born in richer countries are expected to live past 100. So going to university at 18 for 3 years, then working for 60 isn't going to be sensible. There's going to be lifelong learning, and we need to capture our credentials and our achievements in a better way. What happens going probably beyond into the latter end of this decade? Well, I think we're going to start seeing digital work platforms, autonomous organizations, and it changes the game for HR, as you can imagine. We're going to have to nurture talent pools differently. If you want to read my paper on blockchain and its impact on HR, that's downloadable from my website, Glassbead Consulting, and it's free. I did that with Don Tapscott and the Blockchain Research Institute. Now, I want to come on to digital transformation. I'm going to launch my second poll. Okay. What is the main reasons that digital transformation programs fail? Give your gut reaction. Everyone give an answer, please. Research has shown that 70% of digital transformation programs fail. According to the IDC, that's $1.3 trillion spent on these programs. That's a lot of waste. And in the digital COVID age, a quote from Satya Nadella, Microsoft's CEO, he's famously said, "We've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. Why do they fail in your experience?" Now, the number one answer coming from you with 56%, just over 50%, very interesting, is leadership. Second is people. How interesting from a HR tech audience. People is second, and technology is only picking up a few votes. How interesting with digital transformation. So thank you for responding to that question. Now, here are the results from a survey. At number one was people. So quite a lot of you said that. Knowledge was second. Culture, 21%. Strategy, 19%. And leadership and vision, 18%. Now, I've been doing these organizational programs for 20 or 30 years, and this doesn't surprise me. And I think one of the reasons is that people start off with the wrong questions. They start with, great, Andy, blockchain, AI, how do we implement that in our organization? It's the wrong question. We need to be more strategic with our questions. How do we achieve our organizational goals and remain competitive? What capabilities do we need in this digital COVID age? What type of culture and workforce do we need? The good news for you and HR leaders is that you've got the expertise in these core areas of people, change, and culture. HR needs to play a much bigger role in digital transformation. But one tip, the first rule of digital transformation, don't mention digital transformation to your employees. It's jargon. Tip number 2, on transformation programs, cast the net widely on improvement ideas. Your employees are the ones that are going to have the greatest ideas. Cast the net widely, get their ideas and choose the best ones. Now, a question for HR who are extremely busy in this period, in this year, dealing with the chaos of COVID. And also, the next step will be rebuilding our organizations as industries restructure. But with all these tech options and management fads out there, how does HR make better decisions on what to implement? One part of the solution, probably to avoid the worst mistakes, is HR to be effective as people and change scientists. And the future of this is evidence-based management. I think it's the basic idea of evidence-based practice is that good quality decisions require both critical thinking and the use of the best available evidence. And that means assessing evidence from multiple sources. What's the scientific evidence published? What's the organizational evidence? Data, facts and figures. I showed you some examples today. What's the experiential evidence from other people in your industry, from webinars like this? What do other people think? And of course, stakeholder evidence. And I think if you're interested in finding out more about evidence-based practice in HR, 2 resources I recommend are the Centre for Evidence-Based Management, CEBM, and Science for Work. You can find those or write to me, I'll send you the links. Now, for those people who are changing organizations in the workplace, it's always worth thinking about these words of wisdom from Peter Drucker. There's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. I'll leave that with you. And just to summarize where we are now, we've covered some of the emerging tech solutions being used from HR to in HR, from robotics to AI, organizational network analysis, and even blockchain. But what will happen in the next few years is that we're going to have to rethink work itself. And I think things are going to be radically different. For HR, I think successful HR functions will deliver results by being workforce technology evangelists. We're in the right room, folks. People scientists. And HR will be the default location for these issues to do with people and organization as we empower teams. That's my dream, anyway. And for successful organizations, we need to rethink existing ways of working, not just copying Amazon, not just putting our paper application forms on mobile. We need to embrace the diversity of people and ideas, spread the net widely, adopt an evidence-based management approach and avoid the worst mistakes, build trust with employees, empower them, don't spy on them, experiment with new technology from Zoho People to other examples I've mentioned. Try it out and focus more on tasks versus jobs and teams versus individuals. And for all of us who are managing our careers in these strange times, hopefully long, successful careers, here's some tips to finish with. Know yourself. Well, that hasn't changed, has it? But it's a good time now to reflect. Stay curious. Hey, you're curious. You're on this webinar finding out more. Be adaptive to change. We have to be. And think like a business. Think like a business. Career-wise, develop and control your digital work credentials. What are you going to show to people about what you've achieved in the next few years? It's your data. Expect learning to be lifelong and continuous with breaks in between. Build great networks. You never know when you need them, and put something back into the communities. And pace yourself. Look after your own health. An obvious point to end on. So as I finish my talk today, we've had a short skip from Jo in her bug car and Sirius to young Nastya, and some help from my fellow British compatriots from Monty Python and James Bond 007. HR should seize the opportunity to learn new skills, rethink people management, lead the changes, and design the future. We have all the technology, capability, finance, and burning need to build amazing new organizations. I would say that throughout history, we've worked together and we've solved intractable problems, and we will again. I'd like to say to you all, good luck on your journeys to create a new generation of successful organizations. I'd love to hear your views, and hopefully you've got some questions for me, either now or after. Best way to contact me is at Andy Spence on Twitter, or you can follow the Workforce Futurist newsletter on Substack. And finally, I would like to say thank you very much to Princey and Annie and Zoho People for working with me and hosting the webinar today. And thank you all for listening. And I think Annie has something to share with you now.
Great. Thank you, Andy. That was truly a trip to the future and very interesting insights, I would say. So dear attendees, before we jump down to the questions time, I would like to showcase a couple of features of Zoho People that will enable you to put these insights that we've discussed into action. So I'm sharing my screen now. So I saw a couple of new attendees today. So I thought I'll introduce Zoho to all of you first. So Zoho, we are a SaaS company. We provide software as a service. We are out there in the business for 24 plus years now. And we have 45 plus applications spanning across various fields of works. So be it email, marketing and collaboration, human resources, and we are a company with 8,000 plus employees. So that's Zoho for you. So particularly for human resources, we have Zoho People and Zoho People Plus. So Zoho People is a cloud-based HR management software to manage your HR processes and also engage your employees throughout every life stage of them. So right from onboarding, from hiring to retiring, we've got it all covered. And Zoho People Plus is for a more wholesome experience, an integrated suite with 7 applications of Zoho, focusing on recruitment, connectivity and collaboration, digital signatures, password management, and more. So Zoho People for standalone HR application for standalone processing. And for a more wholesome experience, we have Zoho People Plus. So this will be a one-stop solution for all your HR needs. So together, we aim at delivering exceptional employee experiences. So let me just highlight some features that stand out or features that our customers are using currently in this digital COVID age. So Zoho People altogether is very customizable. You can build your own processes within Zoho People. So however unique your needs are, you can build custom applications and it's flexible. And not just for administrators or HR professionals, it is employee centric. It's a comfortable tool for your employees. And any process, any tasks that you are carrying out offline in your organization, they can be automated using workflows. So automation sets Zoho People apart from other softwares out there in the market. And it's more than a HR management software. It lets you connect with your employees. It makes learning continuous. It makes evaluations continuous and more. So it's more of a communication hub as well. So these are features that we are using at Zoho Corporation. So our HR team, they are using these features and also our customers. So I'm sure you'll find these to be useful as well. So what you see here on the screen, a simple survey to check on your employees' health status. And not just that, their family's health status as well. So if you're looking to reopen your offices or if you are looking to support your employees during hard times while they are sick, you can get first-hand information using a survey like this added to the dashboard. And in continuation, you can have automated workflows, mail alerts, make changes to employee sick leave policy, notify respective departments, and more. So a simple health survey to check on your employees. And any idea, any strategy that you're planning. So right now we are in a stage where we have to reset things, we have to rethink our strategies. So whenever you want to turn your ideas into action, we let you execute this effortlessly with workflows. So an automated workflow that comes with mail alerts, even automated updates that would be made in a particular form, an entire course of action as part of checklist and tasks. So here what you see here on the screen is this. So when you are trying to reopen your offices, you might have a checklist. So you can completely automate it. You can even notify different departments about the decision. You can send surveys to employees if they are willing to join and more. So any combination is possible here. So any task, any course of action that you're planning, you can execute this effortlessly with automation. And like Andy had mentioned, learning, it has to be continuous. And as many HR leaders say, never waste a good crisis. So this is the best time to upskill ourselves. So to grow together as a business or for individual employees, a learning and development plan is going to be really useful because when we open offices, the business needs, the industry needs, they are not going to be the same anymore. So we have to upskill. To accommodate this, to make learning happen in homes, to bring learning to desktops, we have an online learning management software. This facilitates blended learning programs, instructor-led programs, even self-paced learning, and it makes the entire experience interactive with course discussions, and managers can suggest courses whenever they spot a skill set gap and so on. So great tool to grow together as a business, particularly during times like this. And also, I'm sure as HR professionals, you're all receiving a lot of questions from your employees, right? So with a dispersed workforce, this can be a problem. Many questions, repetitive questions, most of them. So how do we manage all of them? So the smart way to do this is an online question management tool, what we call as cases. You simply need to create categories on which your employees can ask their questions. So it can be questions on work from home, on maybe employees might want to know how your business is doing during these times, or maybe on health and wellness, or when offices are going to be reopening and so on. So you can create categories and assign agents for each categories, and the agents will be responsible for answering these questions. And we also have Zoho's personal bot, personal assistant, Zia. So other than checking in for your day's activity or applying leave for you, you can also ask Zia any questions. So it will serve through FAQs for you that you already added to Zoho People. So if there are no FAQs, this will raise a case for your employees and the agent will take care of the employee's question. So giving instant answers to your employees' questions and recording and resolving them online is really simple with cases. And most importantly, analytics. So businesses all around the globe, they are taking drastic decisions now. So they are putting stops to hiring, they are making other decisions, pausing things, rethinking, and all of that. So, for you to take informed decisions during cases like this, we've got analytics. So, be it a performance balance report or a generic organization wide report telling you about your hiring rate and your attrition rate so that you'll know what to pause or if you would like to focus more on contract employees, internships, and more. Or if you have unique needs, you can create your own custom reports with our analytics reports builder. So, powered by analytics, you can take informed decisions and rethink your strategies, and all powered by Zoho Analytics. And in many parts of India, many businesses have already reopened their offices, and again in parts of the world as well. So, for you to get back to work safely, we are launching an office readiness app. So, this will be available soon with no additional cost in a couple of days. So, this will help you check your workplace readiness. It will check on your premises protocols, it will check on visitor management, capacity that your workplace holds, other safety measures, and so on. So, this is a great app, a wholesome app to enable you to return to your workplaces safely. So, do try this out while this is out for you. And thank you so much. We really enjoyed hosting the webinar for you all.